what you resist persists. The minute you are triggered as a parent, you are now part of the power struggle and you are co-creating your misery. You just don't realize it. Every time you say something back to your kid, you are now part of that dynamic, right? The other day I was helping a mother who was complaining to me that her child wasn't independent enough at the age of 19. So I asked her to describe a typical interaction, and she said, every time my child asks me for something, I reply, do it yourself, do it yourself. And she thinks that that means she's liberating the child. And I said, every time you react that way with the energy, and she said many times, I'm irritated. Why can't you do it yourself? Haven't I taught you to do it yourself? Yeah. She didn't realize that she's actually...
Hi, I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and this is, well, hello anxiety. In a world that often moves too fast, we're here to pause, breathe, and understand anxiety together. Each episode will explore practical strategies, share honest conversations, and uncover the science behind anxiety and well-being, all while creating a space where it's okay to not be okay. Let's continue this journey together. We have such a treat today. We are being joined by someone whose work has profoundly shaped modern parenting. Known as Oprah Winfrey's favourite parenting expert, Dr. Shefali is the pioneer of conscious parenting. And if you are not familiar with conscious parenting, this is going to change the way you parent from this day forward. She's a clinical psychologist, an international speaker, a wisdom teacher, and author of multiple international best-selling and New York Times best-selling books. Her work has received global recognition, including multiple appearances on Super Soul Sunday. And it just gives me great pleasure to welcome Dr. Shefali to the podcast. And Dr. Shefali, you are going to be actually visiting us down under here in Australia soon too, aren't you? Welcome.
I am so excited to be here with you, Jodi, and your listeners. And yes, I'm coming to Melbourne and Sydney on March 11th and March 12th in less than a month. I'm super excited to spread conscious parenting, because conscious parenting, I believe, is really the key to really saving the next generations, to saving our planet. There's nothing more profoundly impactful than the way we raise our children. And conscious parenting is really a movement now. And the movement is to heal the parent. For the parent to raise their own inner child. Because when you take care of your own inner child, you will know how to take care of the outside child. And we can talk more about this, but that was the main paradigm shift that I introduced in conscious parenting, and it became a game changer. And I'm talking about in 2007 when I began writing my first book called The Conscious Parent. And since then, I've written 7 books, 3 of which are New York Times bestsellers. I have 2 more coming out in September. And my work is all about the pivotal impact of that deep connection between just one parent. It takes just one parent and our child, and how profoundly that one relationship can alter the trajectory of the emotional well-being of that child.
And we know as parents that we can get triggered, we can react, and we're often unaware of what it is that's really driving that kind of response when we're under pressure or when our buttons are pushed. And that's the unconscious nature of what's innate within us from the way that we were raised. With conscious parenting compared to traditional parenting, can you give our listeners who may not have heard about this movement before a little bit of an insight into kind of what it looks like compared to a traditional type of parenting approach?
Yes. So conscious parenting is my rebellion against traditional parenting. Yeah. Traditional parenting is the way most of us were raised in the Gen X generation and above. I'm in my 50s, so late 40s and above, everyone had more of a traditional parenting. And the premise of traditional parenting is control and ownership. You will do as I say. There's an implication, whether it is subtle or implicit or loud and vociferous, that the child belongs to the parent. And therefore, the parent must have complete authority and ownership, possession over the child's destiny. And the child is obligated. And while that has some elements that look like very good parenting, at its core, it's based on fear and control. And as long as something originates and is permeated with fear and control, it robs the sovereignty of the child. And that's why all of us have had to go to therapy and reclaim our sovereign self. So when I became a mother, I'm a therapist. I was observing in my practice hundreds of adults tormented by the, abduction of their authentic self by their earliest caregivers. And then I became a mother, and I thought, for sure I will not do this to my child. For sure I will be more attuned and more mindful. I was a meditator. I was a PhD in clinical psychology, for heaven's sake. And then I realized, wow, unconscious parenting is really the default, whether you have studied in academia or you've practiced meditation. If you have not truly seen your ego in the mirror, you will stay unconscious. And so, as a mother, when I saw that I was losing my mind, I was tantruming like a 3-year-old with my 5-year-old. I was younger than my own real child. I realized that I have to change my parenting because this wasn't feeling good to me. My child was in tears every day, and books and therapists and coaches were just telling me to discipline her more and to have more control. And something in me just rebelled against this. And that's when I realized what was wrong here. And what is wrong is that I was parenting out of fear and control and not willing to see how my own projections, my own fears and expectations and fantasies were in the mix. And I wasn't really attuning to my child. I was trying to fulfill my own dreams of my own unfulfilled self. And that was a very hard pill to swallow, that it was not the child at all, and the child was just my mirror. Oh my goodness, that was like the epiphany that it dawned on me, and it broke my heart and broke my mind open. And I began thinking, wow, if that's what I'm doing, is what every parent doing this, and why is no one talking about it? And that's when I began writing, and I wrote 400,000 words, and I sent it off to this publisher. And a year and a half later, I wrote the book, The Conscious Parent, came out. And slowly it became a movement because people were brave enough, parents were brave enough to say to themselves, this is me, I need to change, I want to do better for my children, I want to break the legacies of shame, I want to change the trajectory for the future. And it's from one brave parent to the next that now conscious parenting has become a movement.
What you just said about brave parenting, I really relate to that, because it is hard, isn't it? And I'm sure that there are parents listening who are thinking, oh my goodness, you are talking about me, that Dr. Shefali, you are talking about, any parent that is listening, because we can all relate to this in our own different ways. And it can bring up guilt, and it can bring up shame and regret and sadness. But we're here to really say it's not too late, that today could be the start of a really beautiful change. So what would you say to parents who are feeling like, oh my goodness, yes, I actually really can see that this is the way I've been raising my kids and I'd like to do something different? What would you say to them about how they're feeling and maybe a first step forward in a new direction?
First, I want them to know is that they are not alone in feeling the guilt, a sense of hopelessness, a sense of like, oh my goodness, I'm the only parent in the world who doesn't know what to do with their kid. Parenting is not a talent. It is not a trait. It is a skill that we cultivate. And every parent is lost. My daughter is now 23. I'm still lost. And she's still teaching me. This is not about perfection. This is not about a destination. This is not about doing it right. This is about being open to looking in the mirror that your child provides you and realizing that this is about about raising your own self, about your evolution. And if you have the right frame of mind and the humility to say that my child is my teacher, my child is my awakener, and I'm willing to learn, everything else changes. It's a game changer. And it's just a mindset shift that needs to happen.
One of the things that I know I've heard you say about parenting, and that we can feel as though we are supposed to have all of the answers, that we have birthed this child into the world and we are raising this child, and that we should know what to do. And yet the only kind of blueprint that most of us have is the blueprint around how we were raised. And so the work that you're doing is obviously changing the relationships in families, but the legacy of the work that you're doing is something I imagine that you have thought about too, because once it's changed in one family dynamic, then that goes on to change generations to come. But that's not the responsibility of the parent here and now in this moment on this day. What could a parent who wants to become more conscious in their parenting think about sort of day to day? And I know you talked about, humility, awareness, about having some courage. What would be the first step? Would it be simply just having an awareness and noticing how we react around our children? Would that be a good thing for us to do, just to raise our awareness of, okay, what is this relationship like as it stands at the moment?
Yes, so many things you said there that are so important. Let me just address a few of them. The traditional parenting model puts the parent on a pedestal of all-knowing, all-powerful, kind of like a mini god in the house. That rampant belief system creates a narcissism in the parent and a very guilt-inducing trap, because the narcissism says, I should know everything and I should just know how to do this and I'm amazing. And then when you actually do it and you realize I don't know anything, now that reality clashes with that narcissism that I have been set up to believe by culture.
Yes.
And now I'm in a deathly guilt-inducing trap. So what I want parents to understand, that is a setup. You are not supposed to know. You can never know. You will never know. Parenting is not about knowing. It is about evolving together in the present moment. Your child does not need you to be a god. In fact, the more godlike and perfect you are, the more you will debilitate your child into their shame, because they will forever see a facade, because no one is really godlike, no one is really perfect. So if you put up that front, you're actually making it impossible for your child to get in touch with their fallibility, their ordinariness. So all this to say that conscious parenting is about being here now. So develop the awareness that what is happening right now? How can I show up fully present now? How can I listen and not talk so much and really attune to my child? What is my child saying to me? If my child is looking at me and their shoulders hunch and slump, they are signaling to me something from their body language. If they are shutting their door tight and under their hood like a teenager typically does, they are giving me a communication. How can I pay attention to what my child is showing me in their body, in their feelings, in their words? There is so much we can learn about how our child feels, who they are, but we are not paying attention. So the first step, I always say, like you said, is awareness and attention. Start paying attention, which means to really listen, not just with your ears. Like, it's not about the sound, it's about their whole energy.
It is so powerful when you do that. And I know I talk to a lot of parents as a mum of a 17 and a 15-year-old. I've got a son who'll be at 18. He can get his license here in Australia. And just that I feel like I've blinked. And I had a conversation yesterday, Dr. Shefali, with someone who's weighing up, do I do more work? I want to make more money, but my kids are 10 and 8 and I want to also be present. And I said, you can always make more money. I mean, that this person's doing very, very well, but just I think as the older your children get, the more you realise how fast the time goes and how easy it is to go through the motions each day. You're in the room, you are listening and saying the right things in answer to kind of what questions they might be asking, but you're not really there. You're multitasking, you're doing something else. They don't have the full attention. And when you put down whatever it is you're doing and you take that time, it's the most beautiful moment of connection. And when we can give ourselves many of those in the day and really show up. And we can't always, of course, we still have jobs to do and dogs to walk, and life is full. But when we're with our kids, when we can really turn that attention to them, I can just say from experience that it just slows time and they feel seen and heard, because none of us like to be half listened to when we're sharing something. And then does it mean that when kids aren't listened to and that parents are kind of going through the motions, that children are less likely to sort of reach out and want to share, and that it can be this spiral of kind of disconnection over time?
Of course, of
Yeah,
course. And girls are different than boys a little
yeah.
bit in that department of sharing. So I don't want mothers of sons to feel, oh my God, my son never talks to me, because most boys, you know how they can be stoic, but
Yeah,
also boys need to be helped.
yeah,
They've been also given the message that they should not be vulnerable, they should not cry, we know all of that.
yes,
But
yeah.
yes, over time, children won't feel safe with you, right? It's all about safety.
Mm,
Do they feel safe with you? And they cannot feel safe with a facade. They cannot feel safe with a distracted parent. They cannot feel safe with the perfect parent. They cannot feel safe with the defensive parent. They cannot feel safe with the power tripping, controlling parent.
yeah,
They can only feel safe with a parent who is fully at ease with their own life,
mm,
puts their children and themselves first before money, acquisition, success, and achievement in the outside world. Just today I was talking to a mother who was torturing herself because her daughter had a really bad stomach ache and she didn't want to go to work.
mm,
And she was like, I feel so stupid. It's just a stomach ache. But she chose to stay home. But she was riddled with guilt. And I said, you
yeah,
did the right thing.
yeah,
What kind of culture do we live in which aggrandizes that we neglect our children
yeah,
for the sake of looking good at work? We should support each other to put our families and our children first.
mm,
And then our achievements. When did achievement culture, hustle culture become more important? So I want mothers, especially listening, to give themselves the permission to be easy with themselves, to
yeah.
not put all this pressure. You can do everything, but not at the same time.
No. I really understand and know my values and really live by my values most of the time. And I mean, you asked me when we first jumped on, tell me a little bit about you. And the first thing I said was, I'm a mum. And it's taken me time, though, to get to a point where I feel like I've got my priorities. And just yesterday, I was on a meeting, a very important meeting, and my daughter has a problem with chronic headaches, and she was in all sorts of trouble at school with a really bad headache. And I just had to excuse myself from the meeting and go and collect her, bring her home, settle her in. She's 15, so she could settle herself in. And then I could jump back on the meeting. And that felt like the right decision. But I guess some parents are probably feeling like, well, I've got these balls I'm juggling. I don't feel like I can put any of them down. And it does take time, doesn't it, to come to that realization and to make the changes that do prioritize family. I know you have a podcast. You have a brilliant podcast called Parenting and You, and I love that you interview parents about their challenges. And what do you say to a parent that joins you on your podcast and says, I really want to do this, I understand it, I just feel so anxious about getting everything done that I can't allow myself to make the time and change my attention, move my attention more towards my kids? How do you support parents who are feeling that way?
Yeah, it's really, really hard.
Yeah,
There's no one right answer. I can't tell that mother, don't go to work, or I can't tell her, don't be with your kids. It's something she will have to come to terms with. But what I will say to her is to go easy on herself.
yeah,
Because in this process, she's also not taking care of her own self.
mm,
And that is the sacrifice that can never be reclaimed, right? Lost time can never come back. And she's losing time with herself. Forget her child, forget anything else. And so many of us women have tied our worth to our achievement at home, at the career, at the school, with our philanthropy, with our body, with our beauty, with our youth. Women have put so much pressure on themselves to be A plus plus in everything. We're super competent, we're super saviors, we're super fixers, we're super achieving. And this is a disease. It's really a sickness. The other day, and this is me who's done so many years of work on this, Just the other day, I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, wow, Shefali, you've done it again. You've again indulged your sickness of overdoing it because I'm coming out with two books in September and I was
Yes.
exhausted,
Yeah.
sleepless. But who did it? I did it to myself.
Mm.
So I just was easy with myself, tender with myself, even laughed at myself a little bit. But I recognized that it was part of my disease. And I'm being very honest about
Yeah.
this. I think so many of us say yes to so many things because we are competent, because we are loving, because we are kind, and we want to be everything to everybody. But in doing that, we are exhausted and we're burning out.
Mm.
And I'm doing it to myself right now, even though I'm preaching this. So I recognize the difficulty in this.
Mm.
And I just in the awareness of it, just the moment I recognized, Shefali, you did this to yourself. You poor little girl, the girl inside you that wants recognition.
Yeah.
That's the little girl that said yes to two books instead of waiting,
Yeah.
years between the books. But I was tender with my inner child,
Yes.
and I took care of her. And I said, I told my inner child, you still are feeling unworthy as you are, and you need to overachieve and overproduce. And I see you. That's all I did.
Mm.
And just in that, I kind of calmed down because I mothered myself in that moment.
Yes. What's so beautiful about your work is that so often as parents we can think, oh, I just wish my child would do this differently, or my child won't do that, or what am I doing wrong to help them do something differently? And yet your work is about us. Your work is about us paying attention to ourselves and becoming more conscious, learning more about the wounds that we have from our own childhood. We all have them, and I can relate to that idea of achievement being a real driver for me over the years as well. It takes the pressure off, doesn't it, when we can turn our attention from trying to change our kids to kind of fit into kind of the mold that we think they should be, which is based on probably how we were raised, to turning our
Right.
attention and changing the way that we are operating. And I feel there's a real freedom in that because we only have control over what we do. And the traditional method of parenting, which brings control to the relationship and do as I say, not as I do, and you have to do it because I told you so, we can move away from that and just focus on ourselves. And I just really think it's really liberating. And I wonder what you would say to that, because it just takes the onus off trying to change somebody else's behaviour, which is near impossible and very frustrating.
It's impossible. It is so liberating, isn't
Yeah.
it? To just realize that if we work on ourselves, show up as present as can be, actually our children will thrive because
Mm.
what we communicate when we show up in wholeness is that we are okay with
Yeah.
the present moment, and therefore we are communicating to our children that who they are in the present moment, upset, angry, tantrumy, rigid, pleasing, compliant, whatever mood, we are okay.
Yeah.
And the minute our children sense that we are actually okay and there's no resistance, it moves, the energy flows, right? The saying is, what you resist persists. The
Mm.
minute you are triggered as a parent, you are now part of the power struggle and you are co-creating your misery. You just
Yes.
don't realize it. Every time you say something back to your kid, you are now part of that dynamic,
Yeah.
right? The other day I was helping a mother who was complaining to me that her child wasn't independent enough
Yeah.
at the age of 19. So I asked her to describe a typical interaction, and she said, every time my child asks me for something, I reply, do it yourself, do it yourself. And she thinks that that means she's liberating the child. And I said, every time you react that way with the energy, and she said many times, I'm irritated, do it yourself. Why can't you do it yourself? Haven't I taught you to do it yourself?
Yeah.
She didn't realize that she's actually staying in that dynamic. She's staying stuck there. And she didn't realize it because the words were amazing. But I said, why do you even have to say that? She said, because I'm afraid that I'm going to have to help them. I said, underneath that was fear and panic. And that's what's keeping you stuck in the dynamic.
Yes.
If you are so sure that you don't have to do it, if you're so sure it's not your job, if you're so certain that your child is capable and fully able, you just won't even answer because it won't even be part of your vocabulary. It won't even be part of your energy, or you'll just laugh at your child. Oh, good one, right? If your child asks you to do their laundry, you're like, oh, good
Nice
one, right?
try.
Oh, funny, funny, right? You won't be energetically triggered.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that we don't realize all the insidious ways, and that's what I teach parents, is to recognize how they are perpetuating their own misery. And the minute you realize that, you're liberated.
You really are. And oh my gosh, I can't wait to be in the room with you and to hear you speak when you're here in Australia in March. And I before we talk a bit more about that, I just have one more question. And that is and I've heard you're so honest, and I love this about you because you're a human being doing the best job of parenting you can with what you know. And when we know better, we do better. And you're sharing your wisdom with the world. But one of the things that we all done is we've lost our cool. We've raised our voices. We've reacted. We've said things we might not mean in the heat of the moment. And you talk a lot about repair because it's human to lose our cool sometimes. It's conscious parenting helps us to operate differently as you develop those skills. But for parents who are like, oh goodness, I've lost my cool a bit much lately, how can you repair with a child? What can you do as a parent who's done that to sort of come back and sort of mend the relationship after an interaction like that?
Yeah, I always say to everyone I counsel, rupture is inevitable. It
Yeah,
is necessary. It is normal. It is healthy. It is the sign of two struggling humans.
yeah,
What is not healthy is unprocessed rupture, unhealed rupture.
yeah,
So, repair is the gateway to the creation of the deepest connection, the most terrific kind of vulnerability as the doorway to resilience,
yeah,
right? And without that, you cannot have resilience because resilience comes from the bearing of vulnerability, right? How can we be resilient if we think we have nothing to be resilient about, right? So resilience comes from knowing your imperfections and working on them and being okay with the imperfections of others and the imperfection of life. And if we're always tidying up things and always putting things in pretty boxes for our children, they will not experience resilience, right? They will not experience the grittiness of the jagged edges of humanity and of life.
You know, the other day I was in the car and with our son who's 17, and there was a miscommunication about something. He misinterpreted something that I said. And we had a bit of a heated, might be an exaggeration, but there was a tense conversation, a tense exchange. And in that moment, I was able to stay grounded and recognize that that doesn't happen very often with us at all, but that isn't it good that he can speak his mind and we can have a conversation about something where there has been a miscommunication and sort through it, and that the skills that he learns doing that in a safe place with me are building blocks for being able to then go out and do that with other people in the world. And what you just said about resilience, I think like you say, rupture will happen, and we'll have these moments in our families, but there's the learning that comes from that, the opportunity to grow and to develop the skills, not only for us but for them. It's really, I think, empowering and encouraging to know that it's not the end of the world if something's happened, but we can come back from it, and that's something that you teach about as well. Is that a reasonable way to kind of look at it?
Oh my goodness. I really encourage your listeners to go to YouTube and type up Dr. Shefali and her daughter, because I invited my daughter on my podcast to bear all my mistakes, like to highlight my mistakes. And it was at a time in our relationship a year and a half ago where things were kind of at a bottleneck. I had gotten through a divorce. She was struggling and she was angry with me for many things. You're going to see how she talks about it. And that is the key, that the child has the voice to communicate and feel safe. It's not about perfection.
No.
It's about showing up.
Yeah.
That's it. And you will see she kills me in that. Like she is tearing me apart. But I'm so proud of her because I can stand on the wholeness of my own inner work, and she can stand on the certainty that the mother is not going to fall apart. She can speak her truth, and the mother is strong enough to take it, right? She's not taking care of me. I was like, you could take care of me a little bit, but she wasn't taking care of me at all. She was only there
Yeah.
to express herself, and that's what I told her to do. And so she
Yes.
did a very good job.
Yes. Oh, we'll put that link in the show notes as well. Dr. Shefali, you are coming down under. You are going to be flying, making that delightful long flight to this beautiful country of ours. And I know you've got Wednesday, March the 11th in Melbourne at the Palais Theatre in St Kilda. And on the 12th, just bear with me one second while I go back to my notes because I know it's moved.
At the Seymour Theatre in Sydney.
Yes. Yes.
And if people go to Ticketmaster, it says a different venue, and then we change it to Seymour. So just know that there are tickets. Some of them think that there are no tickets left, but there are tickets in Sydney. There are lots of tickets in Melbourne because it's a big theater.
Yes.
Bring your partners, bring your mothers. It's going to be a healing evening, an evening of shared humanity, doing the most difficult job in the world, and bearing our truths and learning something and going away transformed. So I really hope some of your listeners will come and see us. You're going to come. I'm going to meet you.
Yes.
I'm so excited in Melbourne and Sydney. And let it be a different kind of evening, an evening where you really invest in the most important job in the world.
It is. And to quote you again, it is a role that comes with great power and great responsibility, and to set aside a few hours to come and learn more from you and the work that you do, and to be in the room with other parents who are all in the same boat. It's going to be very special. So, Dr. Shefali, thank you for your time today. You've been so generous, and we just, are really excited to be able to bring this episode to listeners of the podcast, but also to be able to see you I'll see you in Melbourne, and other listeners from Sydney will hopefully be able to come along and join you there. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. I hope I see many of you there.
Thank you for sharing this time with me on Well, Hello Anxiety. Remember, understanding anxiety is the first step to managing it. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. Take things one moment at a time. Focus on what you can control and know that you are not alone on this journey. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone who might need to hear it too. I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and I'll meet you right back here next week.